You've heard the phrase time is money, and as a video editor, this couldn't be more true. Every second counts when you're working as a freelancer because those seconds turn into minutes, those minutes turn to hours, and losing hours means losing opportunities and ultimately money. But when I started learning and practicing some of the essential keyboard shortcuts I'm going to show you today, I got crazy fast, which let me focus on the creativity of the project itself and ultimately make more money by blowing through edits in record time. So let's dive in and take a look at some of these essential keyboard shortcuts you should be using daily. Right out of the gate, you have your basic all-purpose click and drag selection and pretty much everything tool. Now, Premiere obviously has this set as the default, but if you ever need to get back to it, just hit V and you're back in action. Our next shortcut is C for cut. This one's pretty self-explanatory and allows you to create basic cuts. I often find myself toggling between C and V pretty constantly in an edit session. So having these side by side on the keyboard makes it super easy to move back and forth between cutting and dragging. Just a quick side note while we're talking about cutting, you can also use Command K to cut a clip or Command Shift K to cut all the clips in a stack. Now let's look at the arrow tool, which is super helpful for bulk selecting clips in your timeline and moving things left or right without having to awkwardly click and drag. Just hit A for arrow to access this tool. Or if you hold the Shift key, you can also just select one layer at a time. Now let's talk about navigating through the timeline, and you've really got two main groupings of shortcuts to use for this. First, you've got your arrow keys. Left and right move your playhead left and right one frame at a time in either direction, and up and down jump you forward and backwards to the next closest clip. Keep in mind, this is determined by whatever layers are selected here in the V1, V2, V3, etc. part of the panel. The next grouping is what's called the shuttle keys, here with J, K, and L, which allow you to rewind, play, and fast forward all in a row. Hit J to rewind, K to stop and play, and L to fast forward. And the more you tap in any direction, the faster you'll go. Tap L 3 times, and you'll play back in 1x, 2x, and even 4x speed. I use this all the time when I'm trying to sift through a lot of story moments or interviews without having to listen in real time. Our next shortcut is the Y key, which gives us the slip edit tool. In this mode, we can click and drag left and right on a clip in the timeline to change the area of the footage that will be used while leaving the clip right in the perfect spot. You'll see that when we do this, Premiere splits the playback window into two, showing us the first and last frame of the clip side by side. This is crazy helpful if you're trying to just tweak the end of a clip or quickly find a portion of a shot that you know maybe a little bit better. So even if we just stopped right there, you'd be in a much better place. And notice that your left and right hands each kind of have their own dedicated roles here, with your left hand controlling your tools and the right hand controlling your navigation. Get used to this as sort of your home base, and then we'll start to add a few more that I honestly couldn't live without. All right, the next few shortcuts, I use them constantly. The only problem with them is that they're not set up in the most ergonomical way by default. So to make them a little better, we can actually customize them here in the keyboard shortcuts window. In this window, you can search for absolutely any tool, find out where it's assigned, and then reassign it to make it your own in just a couple clicks. So the first shortcut that I want to customize is Enable. And when we search it, we'll see that it's set up as this by default. But I like to change that to Command Shift E. This Enable shortcut is one that I use a ton in my editing process because it allows me to play around with stacking clips or effects and then get an idea of the potential happy accidents really quickly by switching them on and off. Be sure to customize this one ASAP and get it into your workflow. Back in the keyboard shortcuts window, the second one we're going to customize is the Nest sequence action. So just search Nest, and I like to change this to the number 3. Basically, nested sequences help you reduce clutter when you have massive stacks of layers or adjustments or graphics or anything else. We can select all of these and just hit number 3, and just like that, all of the clips live here within this nest. To access or open this back up, just double click, and all of your layer stacks will open back up. These kind of work like smart objects in Photoshop, where anything you do with this will be reflected back in the master timeline you're working on. All right, now that we've gotten those customizations out of the way, Command R gives you quick access to this window, which lets you edit the speed and even reverse clips. Next up are the shortcuts to nudge your clips in the timeline. When you select a clip and press Command left or right, you'll shift your clip one frame at a time in either direction. This can be super helpful when you're getting down to super precise cuts. Or if you're looking for a bit of a broader control, you can use Command Shift left or right to nudge 5 frames at a time in either direction. Another great clip shifting shortcut is Option up or down, letting you shift your selected clips up or down a layer at a time in the timeline panel. All right, if you're feeling a little macro or a little lost in the weeds of your edit, you can zoom out horizontally with the minus key here. If you need to magnify back in, zoom in horizontally with the plus key. And finally, you can use the tilde key to blow up whatever window your mouse is hovering over. You can use this over the timeline if you need to clean things up, your program window if you're getting files organized, or even the playback window to see your masterpiece a little bit larger. And if you press Ctrl-tilde, you'll actually get a full screen preview of your playback. One more little bonus tip before we finish. I know this video is about keyboard shortcuts, but I'd be remiss if I didn't make one massive suggestion regarding your mouse. I recommend you changing your tracking speed to as high as possible. It may take some getting used to if you're not already there, but I found that by doing this, I save my arm, from swiping, 5 times just to get across the screen, and instead I can use more micro movements to navigate more easily. Just trust me on this one, it's definitely worth it in the long run. Okay, so these are my favorite little tricks, my go-to essential keyboard shortcuts that I use daily to really save me time, give me more creative control, and ultimately help me make more money. And the beauty is that when you put these to use, you'll begin gaining so much more control over that concept of disassociation that we've been discussing. Letting your hands do the editing, so to speak, while your brain gets to be the audience member and really take things more objectively. So the more you practice, the more all of this becomes second nature, and your editing will get so much happier in no time. Really hope this helps, and if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out. Till the next video, happy editing.